Okay. I'm going to stick to a script because I will go down rabbit trails. I am so proud to be here. I was here 10 years ago, and wow, how much the industry has changed. Thank you, Steve, for inviting me to be a presenter this year. I am representing two factions. I'm representing the majority of the demolition industry, which is the small family-owned businesses. And I'm also representing the minority, the women-owned and operated demolition companies. So I'm honored to be here. And as I look around, thank you to the few women that were in the room 10 years ago, the room has changed significantly. And to see two women before me present was fabulous. So today really is one of my favorite days of the year because we learn from each other. We're learning the how of demolition. And I am going to jump into the why of demolition. Just for one day, we come together to learn from our colleagues how to implode, dismantle, shear, crane, demolish, deflect, what we saw earlier, preserve structures from around the world. We learn how to improve techniques and how to implement better safety practices. We learn how our industry is getting influenced by robotics and AI. Allow me to share my journey through my eyes, why demolition has become so important to me and to our world at large. People take one look at me and ask, how did you get into demolition? How did a woman with no construction or demolition experience enter this industry? How did you learn the process? How did you learn to buy equipment? How did you learn to estimate? How did you go from residential and commercial to industrial? Wait, this is the best question. How have you thrived and survived for 18 years? That's the question I even ask myself. Let's face it, this is a man's industry, and rightfully so. It's innate, and it comes naturally to a man. But by God's grace, I've been able to carve out a very little niche for myself. But why? Why demolition? Why did I go into the demolition industry? Out of sheer necessity. The massive winds of Hurricane Katrina blew me out of my former life as an event planner and straight into this industry. Here is a picture of the wall that broke in New Orleans and flooded the streets, flooded the entire city. This was not a hurricane event. This was an engineering failure. And my home was flooded. For 17 days, our city sat underwater, and everything I had in my little house was, needless to say, gone. But that's fine, because it was to put me on this path. In 2005, that was the year that Hurricane Katrina hit. In 2005, our city was flooded. I saw my neighbors being hurt and by price gouging. And I felt that I had to find a place in this industry. I was enraged by all of us getting taken advantage of. I was laid off, I was single, my house was flooded, and I quickly had to figure out what was I going to do to survive. I knew I wanted to be a part of rebuilding my city, and I recognized that demolition was the first path home. I wanted to bring the feminine to the masculine. People were hurting, so I prayed with them over the phone and on their front lawns. I cried with them. I listened to their pain and their story, but at the end of the day, I still knew nothing about demolition. I didn't know the name of the equipment. I didn't know how to drive it or to transport it. I did not know the permitting process or the utility process. And this is truly the most embarrassing admission. I did not know that scrap metal was cash money. I had no idea. But with that one pink dot, everything would change. I knew that the word demolition became personal. Demolition is hope. Demolition is emergency response. Demolition is compassion in action. It's life-giving. It's the path to rebirth. And it's a love for our community. And this is the big why. This is why I went into the demolition business. Besides income, is there a higher purpose that drives you as a leader in your community? I rewrote this speech probably 4 times in the past week to week and a half by the changing in our world. The world is changing rapidly in front of us. It does not matter where you live. Every community seems like it's being affected by a crisis. Are you positioned to be a leader and to rise up to that call? Let me back up a little moment and tell you how I got here and to say how I wanted to be a leader in my own community. As a corporate event planner, I fixed my hair, I dressed nicely, I sold tablecloths, flowers, and the culture of my city. But I would have to pivot and pivot quickly. In my new industry, I would have to wear a hard hat, jeans, boots, but I still did not know the language of the construction industry. How could I pivot into a completely different world? Where did I get the money, or how would I get the money to buy heavy equipment? How would I repair it? Who would drive it? How would I move it? These were all the questions that went in to building a business. The need was great and the crews were few, but there was a couple little assets that I had. I spoke Portuguese and Spanish. I'm born in Brazil, and I was able to rally crews quickly. And my neighbor said, "Can you help us? Can you help us get our house?" I said, "I'll put you on the list." And so I started to mobilize labor crews. This was a great asset. But reinventing myself into a new industrial environment, I knew I had to have a sustainable platform, and that would be upon branding. So, with no mentors, consultants, friends, family in the demolition industry, I knew it was going to be trial by error. I was going to have to learn on my own. And as I said, I progressed through hands-on, gutting of houses. I learned estimating. I learned the right equipment for the right job. I had never heard the word skid steer in my life. I thought they were all bobcats, and if I even knew what that word was. But one other skill that I brought with myself from the convention business was branding and marketing. Upon buying my first excavator from Volvo caught wind and said, "There's a girl in New Orleans who's painted her excavator pink." And Volvo was no dummy. They said, "Send Walter and send a reporter." And so that is the day that my first excavator was delivered, and I threw a party for her. I named her Smashing Star because she looked smashing. But from there, I said, that's it. I will start Demo Diva, taking it down to the dirt. I knew the importance of getting a name recognition out into the community in front of your customer. So with $250, a box of business cards, and yard signs, I hit the streets. No equipment, no knowledge. I didn't know the permitting process. But what I did was hustle. I hustled to put 100 signs out on demolition jobs that I did not do. These were jobs done by other people. Let me translate that. In 1 week, it looked like I did 100 jobs. The average demolition at the time was $15,000. So in a pair of tennis shoes, no equipment, no license, it looked like I had just done $1.5 million worth of work in my community. Needless to say, my phone blew up and Demo Diva was in business. From there, I started to build my fleet. The phase of branding and marketing came very easily, but I had a lot to learn. As I started to build my equipment fleet, the name Demo Diva became known around town. I painted and wrapped everything pink. It took me 3 years to get to this point. All I wanted was my competition to know that there was another person on the playing field. But as fast as I was growing was as fast as I was making costly mistakes. You see this triaxle here? This was one of my biggest mistakes. You cannot do a demolition job with one excavator and one triaxle. You need a fleet of trucks. I was all caught up in the branding and more than I was the logistics. So I decided after 2 years to sell this. I hardly ran this triaxle, so I decided to sell it. A competitor offered to buy it, and he paid premium dollar, and he told me he was going to repaint it black and put flames on the side. And I said, okay, great, you take care of that. But he was cunning. He didn't repaint it. He drove it around New Orleans, pink, with his name on the side of that triaxle. He rode my coattails for probably 5 years, and it was the worst mistake. It made it look like someone else had bought me out, and I was out of business. Hard lesson to learn in branding. Remove your name when something no longer represents you. But that man, I will go on to say, that man would wear his shirt. He told me he wore it to a funeral, and people would walk up to him and say, oh, you're in the demolition business? Do you know the Demo Diva? Which irritated him. But I will say this. As I mentioned, I had no friends or connections in demolition. The odds were against me. I was a woman, a complete novice, no money, in the Deep South, no formal education in construction, much less demolition. And the competition was fierce. But over the years, wisdom came to me through various unusual friends or customers. And I had an Indian man from India who had come to me, and he had purchased 10 barges. And he said, I've purchased these barges, I've floated them down the Mississippi, I'd like for you to barge break them, pull them on shore, cut them up. And I said, oh, you have come into such a saturated market. The largest barge breaker just bought the last dry dock. You probably want to float them on down. I don't see a place for you nearby. And he said words that changed me. He said, does the tree say to the forest, today I shall not grow, there is no room for me? And I said, he said, Simone, you never know when your competition will disappear. Never pass up an opportunity that's presented itself to you. And unfortunately, I did lose that piece of business. But it was a hard lesson. From there, I went on and I said, from that point, I knew that I had to go directly to developers and to the customer base. My passion for demolition was to make a difference in people's lives. So from one hot pink excavator and a triaxle, I purchased these dumpsters. I needed to get my name out into the community. I knew that the general contractors were having a hard time believing that I would stick into the business. So I used these dumpsters as my mobile billboard. I welded a 12-foot panel on them, and over the years, I used it as a second source of income. But I only today own 200 dumpsters, but you would think that I am probably the largest one of the larger dumpster companies in New Orleans just because of the pink. It got my name out into the community, and that's when the phone really started to ring. I had to win the trust of CEOs and the GCs in my community. For example, I once asked a CEO if I could have crumbs from his table. He was the CEO of one of the largest demolition companies in town. I remember where I was standing the day that I met him. I went up to him with all humility and fear, and I said, could I have any crumbs from your table? Anything. Just to be able to work under you. And he literally slapped me on the back of the shoulder and said, "Good luck, kid, with a name like that." And I bristled. And I thought, I said to myself these words, I may be a tadpole, but I will sprout legs. And I think that I have, being in business today, 18 years, I have more than sprouted some legs. I knew that I had to get out into the community and build a team, and I had to build trust. And the best way to get in front of those decision makers was to serve on government boards, school boards. I applied for everything. I worked on the SPCA board, but no, I needed to win the trust of my community. And so from there, I was invited to serve on a trade school board, and that's when I started to meet the developers and the people who were really making the decisions in our community and the government officials. I built a team. We started to do more commercial and environmental work. Demo Diva dumpsters started to plaster the city. This is a job where we abated a 6-story apartment complex, stripped it, and then we re-sided it. Our team just recently did some plant work, asbestos abatement in a Domino's Sugar, where if you get your sugar there, we work there. But it has also put me, by that service of getting in the community, it gave me leverage to be a voice. Here's Warren Buffett, who came to my job site. Yes, I actually got to meet Warren Buffett. I will tell you this short story. I participated in the Goldman Sachs Small Business Program to teach small businesses how to scale, and I was selected for him to come to my job site. And so I had to rehearse. "Mr. Buffett, I'm inspired to grow an American business." I had to rehearse it. So finally he comes to the job site, and I meet him, and I said, "Mr. Buffett, I've been inspired to grow an American business, and you inspire me." And I curtsied. And I think it tickled him so much that he dropped to his knee and kissed my hand and said, "No, young lady, you inspire me." So I'll say that the only man that has yet to fall and kiss my hand is Warren Buffett, and that is true. I actually did work for Brad Pitt. Met Brad Pitt. Warren Buffett is much sexier, just saying. From there, I invested in our local girls' athletic club. The athletic director for the New Orleans Public School came to me and said, "Would you sponsor our flag football for girls? You're a woman in a non-traditional practice. We're introducing a non-traditional sport. We think you'd be a great spokesperson." I said, "Okay." So I get out there. I think I'm going to speak to 400 girls. They're going to be my daughters. These girls wanted nothing to do with me. But I will tell you, as I close later, that these girls gave me something. It's the law of reciprocity, but we'll come to that in just a sec. I go to speak at local high schools on Career Day. My voice now is to get women and minorities into demolition. It is my passion. I love it. It's what demolition has provided for me through opening the door in branding has been to be a voice in my community. And this, my friends, is what I say about the power of branding. It establishes trust. It will give you that loyal customer. You cannot be all things to all people. You want to filter your customer. So like minds draw to like minds. And so we're not, unfortunately, yet there for the power plant. But I've been happy to be that smaller community demolition company. A brand will grow and sustain you through the lean times. I started in 2005. When 2008 hit, my name was out on the street. It got me through the 2008 slump. A brand will make you an industry leader. I recently I'm in the middle of a lawsuit with our local EPA. I'm disputing some of what they're trying to fine me for. And I told them, I said, "This is what you've done wrong to the demolition industry. You have not come to us and had lunch and learns. You have not been friendly. You have a get-you, caught-you a penalty attitude. And I said, I own demolitiontownhall.com. Why don't I spearhead a lunch and learn and you come into our community and present the new regulations? They were so happy. They said, that's a great idea. And I said, but they also knew that Little Demo Diva had a very influential voice in the community. I said, I'll gather the other demolition companies. A brand inspires and elevates others. That's what you buy when you buy a brand. You're buying an emotion. You're buying trust. I did not sell demolition services when I started. I sold trust and honesty. I said, I'm from New Orleans. Trust me, I'm your neighbor. Trust me to get this done. I recently attended and the last thing on that is that you become a world changer, and it's your legacy. That is our succession plan. We're all here for temporarily, but how do we pass that baton? It's the name and the legacy of what we've built. And no greater lesson than I learned was, am I okay on time? Okay, I'm finishing right now. I attended the licensing expo in Las Vegas, and I learned something so interesting from the Tommy Bahama VP of branding. Tommy Bahama shirts only started 30 years ago. They started the Casual Friday shirt. That shirt was the thing that shirt was a game changer. There was no such thing as Casual Friday until Tommy Bahama created this relaxed shirt. So Tommy Bahama said, we're going to put our name on things that feel relaxed. So they decided to start the chair. That was the next thing. Tommy Bahama has gone from a small shirt company to a $1 billion company by selling the emotion of relaxation. They built a $100 million furniture line. They have an alcohol spirits line. They have restaurants all over Florida. And in November, they are opening their first resort in Palm Springs. So how does this translate to the demolition industry? Here's their resort in Palm Springs. We sell three things in our industry. We sell safety, trust, and a new beginning. But it all starts with the power of a brand. I'm a small company with a reach. And I will say this in closing. I had invested in those girls. And I tried to establish a relationship with them. And so I said, with those flag football girls, the flag football girls did not want a relationship. So I went to the cheerleaders, and I put out a little competition and said, hey, if anybody writes the best jingle, you'll be on my next commercial. And so in closing, I want to share this little commercial. This commercial ran in New Orleans for a few years, and every time they would see my car or any of our trucks, people at the grocery store, the mailman, would sing this song, and it became so catchy. So again, thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to share it. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
It does take a diva. Call Demo Diva to tear down and flood your blighted property.
Don't neglect your property.
Demo Diva, taking it down to the dirt.
Thank you so much. Do we have time for a question? Okay. Oh, thank you.
So I'm going to open the floor to a question. Well, I think we have time for maybe just one. Okay. And if not, come on. I'm going to ask. Oh, in the back there. Just wait. We're going to get a mic out there for you, okay?
Boa tarde.
Boa tarde.
I just wanted to say hello and like listening to your story, and I'm Portuguese as well, so just saying
prazer.
hello. Bom dia, boa tarde, boa sorte.
In closing, I'll just say the path for women, there is a path for women and minorities in demolition, and it is through trade schools.
Well, I kind of see a fireside chat in our future at some other event, because I feel like we need to go down the rabbit hole of this whole experience. But thank you so much, and we really appreciate it.